We get started, just so you know, there will be a luncheon today. Next door, limited seating available. And if you want tickets for that, it will be available after the first break outside. And also there'll be another luncheon also tomorrow available. And there'll be two presenters also on these luncheons. One will be Ryan Fowler today, talking about business, estate planning, asset protection, privacy, things like that. How to protect your assets, protect your business, protect your heirs from lawsuits, anybody taking your stuff illegally. And then tomorrow will be about credit cards and how we can get back at those guys. So let's start. Okay, we're going to start in just a few seconds. Everybody, would you please read with me the American Freedom? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when the long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This is a quote from the unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America, adopted on July 4th of 1776, which is commonly called the Declaration of Independence. This is what gave birth to this great United States of America. And the reason we do not start with the Pledge of Allegiance, but rather we start with this, is that a reminder needs to be put out there by us, we the people, that it is not we the people that owe any allegiance to our public servants in government. It is them that owe allegiance to us, we the people. And another reason for starting with this quote is the fact that these public servants all take an oath to God and to you each of you American people, to uphold and defend your rights, your safety, and happiness, based upon the restrictions put on them by the Constitution and laws of the United States. And we believe at Freedom Law School they are doing a very poor job of that, if not very often utterly, knowingly disregarding their sworn duty. And that's why this is called a freedom rally. It's not free from some private little company bothering you or your boss or your neighbor, but it's freedom from government oppression and tyranny. That's why we've been doing this freedom rally since 1999. And we brought you an array of speakers from many different areas. And so the program that we'll be having today and tomorrow, we don't have a whole lot of breaks. And we've done that so we could put more speakers on there for you to enjoy listening to. So I'd like to ask you folks to please, when we are back from the breaks, you're going to hear before that a 2-minute music to let you know that your time is finishing up. You got to get back on your seats. To please do so. If you'd like to talk to the vendors or speakers, that's not a problem. Just step outside with them, finish your conversation with them outside, and then come back whenever you're ready. Okay, that way we can get the program started on time and everybody can enjoy the speaker's speech. Our first speaker is a gentleman I met in 1994. He heads up a group that, in my opinion, is not only the oldest, one of the oldest, but also the most successful freedom law group I came across when I met him back in 1994, and still today, over 10 years later. The group is called the Free Enterprise Society. And the director of this organization has been involved in the freedom law movement for over 20 years. That's after having a career in the computer science field. And a lot of us in this freedom movement, including myself, owe a lot of gratitude and appreciation for the fact that pioneers like him have been involved in the field of freedom and law and educating us, like Freedom Law School, about what our rights are and what we need to do to secure and protect our rights. Please help me give a warm hand of welcome to Mr. Steve Hempfling, Director of Free Enterprise Society.
Thank you, Payman. Thank you, Payman. I do want to thank Freedom Law School for putting on these events. They're a lot of work, and I'm glad they do it. I'm always humbled when I come to these because there's so many great speakers. And now, and if somebody told me this 10 years ago, I'd be having tables next to IRS agents, I wouldn't believe them. But we got a couple in here. Clifton Beal. And Joe Bannister, I don't know if he's in the room. There's over 5 IRS agents now that are talking against the IRS in voluntary nature. And that's going to increase, I think, a great deal. Somebody else I want to recognize if he's here. Is John Castle in here? Well, he's here somewhere. John Castle had his own television program. He's retired now, but when we first founded this in 1985, he just was getting his television program going, and we were I think we were his first guest on his new television program, which ran for almost 25 years. And he really helped us a lot, and he was a really great man. We're going to talk about the IRS. Anybody heard of them? How about the Franchise Tax Board? They're a local organization here to help you. Some of you are not from California. Anybody not from California? Well, you're lucky. All right. You're afraid. Most of the people are afraid to come to California now. Did you have to get on an airplane? That's pretty scary now. Not the terrorists, it's the people that search you. Well, if you're new here, I want you to know that one of the things we like to talk about is this little book that's on the table. It's called on the front it says Citizens Rule Book. But what it is the Declaration of Independence that you guys read this morning, the Constitution of the United States, has the Bill of Rights in here, has the 10 Commandments. It even has the Communist Manifesto in here for comparison to show you how the other side lives. But this is the rule book, if you will, that made America the greatest country we've ever seen in this world. And when we follow this formula right here in my hand, financially and standard of living, we were second to none in the world in a very short period of time. But yet I contend that we're not following this Constitution any longer. Now, some of you haven't read this. Many of you have. But if you haven't read it, you won't know that we're not following this anymore. There are people out there on the news saying we're going to replace this. Have you heard that? This is obsolete. It ain't going to work today. Well, if they say that, what it means is your freedom isn't going to work today. Aren't we giving up our freedom for the terrorist? Anybody read that Patriot Act? Well, excuse me, if we give up all of our freedom to preserve our freedom, what are we fighting for? There's no book in my... All right. I'm going to have you go back and find me one with a book before I start that. Now, some of you know that the IRS stands for Internal Revenue Service. Does anybody know what the FTB stands for here in California? Franchise Tax Board. A lot of these agencies have 3 letters on there. Is there a coincidence to that? I think they should have 4-letter words or 4-letter acronyms. Huh? When you think of the IRS, what comes in your mind? 4-letter word. I'm sure. Thank you. Okay. We've got a saying up here, Justice Hugo Black said, loyalty comes from the love of a good government, not fear of a bad one. Is that still true today? Does anybody fear our government today? You wouldn't be here probably if you didn't, to some extent. Because the government's putting people in jail for not dealing with income taxes, aren't they? How does that happen? People are being put in jail for other things today that people don't understand. Under the Patriot Act, people are being put in jail without charges if they declare you to be some kind of terrorist or what they call material witness. Now, a lot of people think that that's only going to happen in foreign countries. Well, that has already happened here. There are Americans arrested here on this land, being held under the Patriot Act and under the terrorist bills without charges, and they could be held there the rest of their lives. This is not good. We're not too far from maybe, hey, somebody disappears in the middle of the night. You ever heard that happening in anywhere? They do it more up front here. But we can stop a lot of that. A lot of sections of the Patriot Act is already under attack. Some of them have already been thrown out by the courts. Let's go there. All right, I got that. If a nation expects to be free and ignorant, expects something that cannot be. That's Thomas Jefferson. These guys were pretty smart, weren't they? Can you imagine people talking like that today in Washington, D.C.? We already read this morning. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, there's a lot of people who take that equal out of context, don't they? Equal means we all should have the same amount of food and all the same house. Some people believe that. There are planners in this country who want you all to live in the same house and all to use public transportation. That'd be nice and neat. Would you like that? That's not what this means, is it? What does equal mean by the founders? Do anybody know? That's right, equal opportunity. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That doesn't mean they're entitled to happiness, does it? That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Who is the governed? We the people, like in this room or in Washington, D.C.? In this room, right? There's no question about what the founders intended. But if you talk to the people in Washington, D.C., what do they think? That's right. Once they get elected, they think they are absolutely immune from anything. U.S. Constitution, Article 6, says, this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. Supreme law. What does supreme mean? Top or bottom? Top, of course. Now, that's not Steve Hempfling saying it. Why is this Constitution the supreme law? Does anybody know? Yeah. Because Article 6 declares it to be. Not me. So what does that mean? It says, the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So if California passes a law that is contrary to the Constitution, will it stand or fail? It should fail. But it does stand, right, today? How about the United States government? Every law that they pass has to be compared to this standard. And if it fails, it's supposed to be thrown out. That doesn't happen very often, though. Why? Because no one seems to have read this document. We knew a state senator here, Senator Don Rogers. Some of you may know him. He used to be up in Kern County. He was nicknamed Senator No because he never voted for anything unconstitutional. He probably didn't vote for 3 bills in 15 years or something like that. But he said on the best, there's 120 elected officials in this state. He said at the best, 3 of them have ever read this document. On the federal level, it's probably worse. Although one of the persons that have read it, we're going to see tonight, Congressman Ron Paul. He's one of the few people in federal Congress. The senators and representatives, continuing on there, and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Can we agree they're talking about the United States Constitution? Not the Constitution of Russia? Does Russia have a Constitution? Beats me. And if they do, I don't want it. Some people believe the UN Charter is now our Constitution. Have you heard that? So the UN Charter is probably pretty close to a treaty. And look at this. It says above the first part, it says, all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law. Does that make the UN treaty law? No, it has to be under the authority of the United States. Does the United States have the authority to give away our country? No. All right. Good answer. Got the wrong person up here today. All right. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties. Affords no protection. It creates no office. It is an illegal contemplation. It's inoperative as if it has never been passed. Now, that's a case here, Norton versus Shelby County. That's how important the Constitution is. But most people don't act like that today. You got law enforcement. How many police officers in here? Anybody? A few of you? They don't read the Constitution either, do they? And most police officers get in because they really want to do a public service. They might even die to protect you and your family. But yet they don't know what your rights are. They can't protect your rights because they don't know what they are. How about filing of income tax returns? Who is required? This little box I found in the 1040 instruction booklet. Now, everyone believes everyone's required to file. We're taught that from birth. Before you can walk, you know about this. Isn't that true? But yet I found this box, and you can find it in your little 1040 instruction booklet at home. It says, do you have to file? Well, this is important. So let's look. Use chart A, B, and C to see if you must file a return. And then it says tip. Even if you do not otherwise have to file a return, you should file one to get a refund. That's a good tip. But I've established one person is not required. Is that true? At least one person is not required, or they would not put that box in there. Maybe everyone but one is required, but we'll start right there. That's good enough to start with. Now we'll go to the Fifth Amendment. This is out of the Bill of Rights in this little book here. And by the way, I forgot to mention, this is a very, very important book that all of you should have. If you don't have one of these, you have got to get one before you leave here. You're going to be searched on the way out. No, I'm kidding. Now, and these are only $2 on the Free Enterprise Society table back there. And if you don't have any money, already spent it all at the tables, you can just steal one off of my table. It's okay. I mean it. You got to have one. That's how important this is. Let's go to the Fifth Amendment, the Constitution. It's on the bottom. It says, no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. Now, a lot of people believe the Fifth Amendment talks about self-incrimination. If you watch Perry Mason or something, that's what they talk about. But self-incrimination, those words do not appear in the Constitution. You have a right not to testify against yourself, and that means a little bit something different than self-incrimination. In fact, self-incrimination does not even sound good. I don't want to incriminate myself. But that's not the right the founders gave you. The right they gave you is not to testify against yourself. If you're accused of something, you do not have to take the stand. But how does that affect income tax returns? Right above there, we have a case, Sullivan versus United States. It says there can be no question that one who files a return under oath is a witness within the meaning of the amendment. They're talking about income tax returns and the Fifth Amendment. And notice they say you file a return under oath. Anybody know how that is done? By your signature, not just the signature, but when it says penalties of perjury, above your signature, that's an oath, just as if you put your hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They can use that against you in a court of law after you sign that. And you cannot stop it. A lot of people are not aware of that. And it's not me saying it, I'm sorry. The case is already there. But Sullivan versus United States said you waive the Fifth Amendment when you file a return. It's not me saying it. Let's go to the Fourth Amendment. The right of people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated. Now, the founders thought enough of the word papers to put it right in the Constitution. What kind of papers are they talking about? Toilet paper? Newspapers? No. Your family records, business records, whatever it was. You had a right to privacy in those. Now, do you waive those when you file an income tax return? Yes, you do, at least to the extent of anything you make reference to. If you say such and such a receipt exists, you've waived your Fourth Amendment right in regards to that document. And you can be prosecuted for that. If you file an income tax return and lie on it, that's a felony. Now, what happens if you don't file one? Anybody know? Failure to file is a charge, and some of you may be familiar with, but it is a misdemeanor only. Same as not having a driver's license. A lot different than a felony tax evasion charge. So these are your waiving rights. Can you be required to waive rights? Let's look at what waive means. We got this from a law dictionary. To abandon, renounce, or throw away, renounce, repudiate, surrender, or claim a privilege or right. To give up a right or claim voluntarily. In order for one to waive a right, he must do it knowingly and be possessed of the facts. Did the IRS inform you of all these things clearly before you decided to file that return? They did not. But yet the courts view this as a proper waiver, and it's not. Now, by the way, when you sign under the penalties of perjury, it's not just tax returns. Many government documents have that on there. Yes? Yeah, you can do that. Or not sign anything at all. Now, people like to talk about rights all the time, especially these darn elected officials. Man, you got all kinds of rights, and they're going to pass a bill and give you rights. What does that mean? Well, there's civil rights. You've heard of those? What's a civil right? Huh? It's something they put into law. Now, Martin Luther King did a lot of work in civil rights, and he did it through the courts, you may recall. He won a right for you, for people through court decision. What can the next court do? Make a different decision. A lot of that was codified into statute later, but that's the next step. Statutory rights. Have you heard of those? What's that? Something a congressman or something writes into a statute and gives you a statutory right. Is that a real right? What can they do with that the next day? They can repeal it. I like to talk about constitutional rights. We have a definition up on the board. A right guaranteed to the citizens by the Constitution, so guaranteed as to prevent legislative interference therewith. Can it be any more clear than that? Can the United States government or California require you to waive constitutional rights in order to pay taxes? The answer is no. In fact, the first income tax was thrown out for constitutional reasons in 1896. Some of you may be familiar with that. When they redid the income tax, supposedly in 1913, they forgot a few things. One is they never passed that amendment properly, the 16th Amendment. I'm not going to get into detail on that. But number one. But number two, basically they made it voluntary. And if you look closely at the IRS publications, you'll see that word in there. Voluntary compliance, self-assessment. Have you ever seen that? Some of you have. If you're not looking, you just won't believe it. I went to a meeting like this about 1979, and the person there was talking about voluntary, and I thought he had, I don't know, didn't quite think he was all there. Anyway, he said, well, Steve, you ought to call the IRS up. I said, well, by God, I'm going to do that. I don't necessarily recommend this to you. But I called the IRS up the next morning. I said, hey, I went to this meeting, and they said the income tax is voluntary or something like that. I said, is the income tax voluntary? And the agent I talked to said, yes, sir, it is. Well, this surprised me. And I thought for a moment, I said, well, good, I don't want to volunteer anymore, I said. And then the agent said something pretty amazing. The agent said, but, sir, you have to volunteer. Well, this confused me for several days. We have a case here, Florida versus United States, Supreme Court case. It says our tax system is based upon voluntary assessment and payment, not upon distraint. Distraint means force. Maybe the IRS has not read this case. How about the local franchise? How about the local franchise tax board? Yes. We got a letter from Roger Lubins. The franchise tax board relies on its residents to voluntarily file their income tax returns. Now look, he's in the filing compliance unit. Now you're probably thinking right now, if it's voluntary, why do we need a filing compliance unit? That's a good question. Well, let's look up some definitions again quickly. I'm running out of time. Voluntary, proceeding from the will of one's own free choice. Oh, and also we have a special agent handbook. This is used by the Criminal Investigation Division. And this is an older one because we don't have a current one, but Mortimer Kaplan, who was the Internal Revenue Commissioner at that time, said this about this manual. He says, our tax system is based upon individual self-assessment and voluntary compliance. The material contained in this handbook is confidential in character, and it should not under any circumstances be made available to persons outside this service. We have it back on our table for sale for you. Every manual we get that's secret, we make sure you guys get it. And then some definitions quickly. Voluntary, proceeding from the will of one's own free choice. Voluntary system, a system of freely given support. Voluntary from a law dictionary is unconstrained by interference, unimpelled by another's influence, spontaneous, acting of oneself, proceeding from the free and unrestrained will of the person. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's our income tax system today. 90 million people go down to the post office on April 15th, free and unrestrained. Is that the silliest thing you ever heard? Have you ever been down there at the post office? Some of you have. That's kind of fun. I mean, every radio station, television station, and all the patriots are down there handing out stuff and talking to everybody. And I stopped going down there because I didn't think anybody that actually was filing were listening to me. But when we regain control of the government, April 15th will be a new national holiday. So. Now, I said the IRS doesn't tell you these things, but in a way they do, and I don't have a lot of time to go through it. But it was page 57 in the 2003 manual. Now it's going to be it's like page 75 or something in the one this year's. But it's a Disclosure, Privacy Act, and Paperwork Reduction Act notice. I got several paragraphs here listed. And this is required to do several things for you. They have to tell you the right to ask for the information, why they're asking for it, what it will be used for, what will happen to you if you don't do it, and that kind of thing. So let's go to number 2. The most important thing here, of course, is are there legal right to ask for information? They have to tell you if you have to give it. It says our legal right to ask is the Internal Revenue Code section 6001, 6011, and 6012A, which require you to file a return or statement with us for any tax you're liable for. That sounds like you're required, doesn't it? We're going to get back to section 2. Under number 3, they keep this information private. If you are filing, you want to know that your information is kept confidential. And it says right in here, for example, we may disclose your tax information to the Department of Justice to enforce the tax laws, and both civil and criminal, and to cities, and to states, and the District of Columbia, U.S. Commonwealths, and possessions, and even foreign governments. Who's left out? You. If you try to get your personal records, you may have to sue under the Freedom of Information Act and get it, because they won't give it to you. But anybody else can pretty much have it. Okay, let's go to 6001 if it's there. We'll skip that one. Remember that first section that says you're required to file under these 3 sections? It doesn't say you're required to file. It says these 3 sections require you to file. Maybe we should look at those 3 sections quickly out of the IRS code. Section 6001 was the first one they mentioned, and it says, every person liable for any tax imposed by this title. Let's stop and look at the first 3 words. Every person liable. Does this make you liable if it starts off with every person liable? It cannot. This would apply to you after you are liable for the income tax, however that is done. Let's look at 6011. This must be it. Yes, see, general rule. When required. Let's stop right there. Does this require you to do something when required? This would apply to you after you've been made required. How is that done? Anybody know? It's voluntary. Didn't they just tell you that? 6012A. This is a little more confusing, and they didn't even throw this in. When I was in 1979 and up until recently, this section wasn't even in the Privacy Act. They're trying to just confuse us further. Anyway, returns with respect to income tax under Title A shall be made by the following. Every individual having for a taxable year a gross income which equals or exceeds the exemption amount, except that a return shall not be required of an individual. Now, I know you think I'm not printing that properly, but when you get your own IRS code, that's just how it's printed. Does that clearly make you required to do anything? It does not. Senator Root, 1913, right after the exposure of the income tax was passed, he says, I guess you will have to go to jail. If that is a result of not understanding the income tax law, I shall meet you there. We shall have a merry, merry time, for all of our friends will be there. It will be an intellectual center, for no one understands the income tax law except persons who do not have sufficient intelligence to understand the questions that arise under it. That's pretty profound, you see. Well, quickly, I'm going to tell you what we have in Free Enterprise Society. How many members of Free Enterprise Society do we have in the room anyway? Quite a few? All right, don't be the last one on your block to be a member, you know. Because what we do, we help educate a lot of people. We get on the radio. We do a lot of publications. And the way to turn our country around is simply to educate a lot of people. Because we're not in the school systems, of course. We're not really favored by the major media. We use radio quite a bit, the internet. But a lot of it has to be word of mouth as well. But we have a little program. If you don't file returns, we put a 4-step program that I'm just going to briefly mention. We also have a catalog on our back table, which is free. I hope all of you at least pick one of these up if you do nothing else, along with your Constitution that you kind of have. All right. Reliance 2000 program. Basically, we have Step 1 is The Law That Never Was, Volume 1 and 2, which is a couple books we have on the back table that shows that the 16th Amendment was never ratified. Step 2 is the 16th Amendment Reliance Package. I don't have one up here, but it has a blue ribbon and seal. These are things that happened since the publishing of that book. One of the authors of the book was attacked criminally, and there's a lot of interesting things the judge had to say about his 16th Amendment information. Redress of grievance. We write letters to Congress, the Senate, and the President. And this does a couple things. It does not necessarily change a congressman's attitude, but what it does is lay a foundation for you and lets them know that a lot of people are starting to get concerned about these issues, because one letter to a congressman he may think it means 500 or 5,000 or more constituents, because not that many people write them. But since 1992 and introducing this program, we've been writing hundreds, maybe thousands of letters to them. And they've even introduced bills now to repeal the 16th Amendment because it wasn't properly ratified. In some cases, haven't gone anywhere. We kind of object to that bill because we don't want to repeal something that wasn't properly ratified. We want them to acknowledge that something fraudulent occurred and simply set it aside. Two wrongs don't make a right, you see. But Congress just can't bring themselves to that. Number 4 is a First Amendment lawsuit. After the Congress, your senator and your great senators here in California, Boxer and Feinstein, after they don't help you with this constitutional question, then you can go into federal court. And it's going to call a declaratory relief action. And what that does is they're required now to answer the question of whether you're required to file or not. And the interesting thing is that the courts won't do it. They haven't done it. They throw the suit out and don't answer you. Does that help you or hurt you? It's going to help you immensely, because when they don't answer that question, which there should be an answer to, that's really proof that they don't have an answer, isn't it? And you have it in your hands from a federal court. We have several seminars. In fact, what I'm doing today is part of our basic income tax seminar. If you're new to the income tax issue, I highly recommend picking this up. It's only $17.50. It comes with 2 CDs. We also have it on audio tape, but I don't think we have it with us. You can order that. We have a whole set of tapes what he just took down. We have 15 different seminars we do on more vast subjects, on things that we've done with the income tax and court cases we're involved with. And yes, sometimes we deal with the IRS. I mean, we had an IRS agent, Robert Weaver was his name, called me years ago. He said, "Hey, Steve, have you filed your income tax returns?" or something stupid like that. I said, "Well, hey, Bob, hey, we got a problem here, Bob." I said, well, he said, "What's that, Mr. Hempfling?" I said, "Well, I don't know you're an IRS agent." He said, "Oh, that's a very good concern, Mr. Hempfling." I said, "Well, then you just put something in writing to me." And he said, "I already did." I said, "Well, you got to do it again because I don't get it, you know." Anyway, one of the things our membership does also is help you deal with these kind of situations. If you get letters and things and you're a non-filer, we help you support that position. We also have a legal defense.